I really hate cities, or at least the way we're building them. I just think we can do better. Cities nowadays really seem to be more for cars than for people, which is a problem because people want to live in them. Cars need streets, more and wider streets than the average person. This is a waste of space. You could put cute little shops in here. Environment is also a thing. The European Union emitted 888 million tons of CO2 in 2018. 62% of that was from personal vehicles, so your car. It's so stupid that every single human takes a single car to get from one side of the city to the other, even though most of us have similar destinations anyway. Not to mention the massive gridlocks and traffic jams cars can create. If you think this is freedom, then we need to have a talk. As an alternative, if you can, please use train and bicycles. Trains cut emissions by 80% for medium short distances, so like in between towns and in large city areas, and using a bike for short distances cuts emissions by 75%. Now, the idea of your personal carbon footprint is a really dumb idea, and it comes from huge oil companies having a weird ad campaign in the 2000s. But if we all had the infrastructure in place to use the alternatives I just listed, then it would have a huge cumulative effect. And if you live in the suburbs, a car is often your only way to get to a certain place, for example a shop, even though your destination might only be 10 minutes away on foot. I mean, Americans spend an average of 50 minutes a day in their car. Do they? That's nice. Walking or biking is also healthier than using a car, so that's an advantage. And for those of us who can't walk or have difficulties walking, it's even more important that we free up the roads for them, or for when the ambulance is trying to get through, but they can't because there's a traffic jam, so people die. That's bad, I feel. Cars are also really expensive. The following numbers are gonna be for my country, Germany. Getting a driver's license costs 2,000 euros. I was almost about to say a year. Yeah, every year you have to pay 2,000 euros if you want to keep your driver's license. Getting your first car costs 5,000. Continuous costs include 500 euros car insurance, 100 euro vehicle tax. Fuel is like 15 euros per 100 kilometers. So that's like 1,500 euros a year, given an average of like 10,000 kilometers driven per year. I don't know how much you drive. Inspection every 2 years is like 100 euros, so on average 50 per year. And parking, which you can get a permit for online if you live in Berlin, for example, costs 20 euros, is valid for 2 years, so 10 per year. So that all adds up to an annual cost of 2,160 euros and 7,000 euros one-time cost for the car and the driver's license. Public transport in Berlin costs about 1,380 euros for an all-year ticket for all the surrounding regions and Berlin itself. And if there was, I don't know, sudden public pressure on politicians, we could easily get 365 euro tickets a year, or even free public transport, which we should do anyway. Just do it. Please, please, please. Cars are really shit, and I really want bike highways through cities and between like connecting towns. I live in a small town. I really want that shit. Now, I know they look cool and I'm not against all kinds of high-rise building. However, most of the time it isn't even necessary to go that high. First of all, skyscrapers consume a lot of energy, transporting the water up, waste down, and all the heating shit. They require a lot more maintenance due to the long hallways, lifts, and their enormous fucking size in general. Skyscrapers are also really expensive to build, so most of the time the first thing the people who finance these projects want to see is their money return, not people living there actually. So they'll just be bought up by rich bitches, and thus skyscrapers actually replace affordable housing a lot of the time. Then comes the environmental impact of skyscrapers. Have you heard of urban heat islands? These little fucks exist when the natural environment is replaced with a bunch of concrete, so buildings, streets, all that shit. The heat is trapped, and with it all the pollution, which has a bunch of amazing side effects. Now, skyscrapers don't directly cause urban heat islands to come into existence, but them being there makes everything worse because they restrict airflow in like higher regions. This is airflow. And again, urban heat islands have a bunch of amazing side effects, like trapping pollution in place for longer, killing people, or heat-related illnesses in general. So, shortened lifespan isn't sexy. And the last point for skyscrapers, isolation. Not the COVID kind. Good joke. Living on the 20th floor means you're pretty isolated from your surroundings. Whether you want to go outside to do something or not depends on your motivation to become a fucking Olympian on the stairs or wait for an elevator for 20 minutes. I know I said lift and elevator in the same video, that's great. So what we have created are cities where you need 30 minutes just to go to a fucking shop if you need one single grocery. Now, have you heard of mixed zoning? A house and then there's a shop right next to it? Yeah, that's called mixed zoning. And I really like it. If you have a giant residential area, just mix some shops in and have some industry close-ish by so people don't need to drive 2 hours until they are at work. And on the topic of mixed zoning, we can do a multitude of things. One, preserve the little fucking nature we have left in cities, and I don't mean that one single tree next to your apartment. I mean actual parks and like large areas where nature can just exist and do her shit. For example, suck carbon in. That's great. I love her. Nature will also help get people outside again. You know what's dying right now, except the planet and me? Our city centers. Yeah, people just shop more online, and part of the reason why people don't go outside anymore is because our cities look fugly, fucking ugly. And again, they're for cars most of the time. If you make cities nice again, people will go back outside and interact, preferably not during a pandemic. 2, don't just create mixed zoning, but also mixed income. Mix some different people classes together. This will help the local economy as well and help shops survive. If there's like if there's a multitude of people with different kinds of income who all like spend more, that's great. And mixed income will also help prevent ghettoization, which is where we create a specific part of the city where there's like an isolated social group and then they have crime and are suffering because they're alone. And 3, develop high quality and affordable transit. That's one of the main issues of modern cities, but some are already solving it, Luxembourg and Tallinn in Estonia, but they also show what doesn't work. Apparently offering affordable or even free public transport doesn't boost their usage by that much. 3 years after fares were abolished in Estonia's capital Tallinn, the number of bus passengers increased from 55% to 63%. While car journeys decreased only slightly, from 31% to 28%. So simply making public transport amazing, free, and sexy doesn't seem to be enough, it seems. So we need to force people to leave their cars at home. We could make city centers car-free zones. Simply do not allow cars to be driven in a certain area of the city. Specifically in high-density urban areas where cars really aren't necessary. I'm talking center of New York, LA, Berlin. This works really well in Oslo, Vienna and Barcelona. Because surprise, people will use public transport if you give them no other option. Not owning a car would also be great for your finances. I'm saving a lot of money. Our cities right now are literal hell for any kind of natural environment. I like to call them concrete clusters of despair and misery. They waste enormous amounts of energy, radiate enormous amounts of heat, not helping climate change, and make thousands or hundreds of thousands of people move needlessly. So how do we make cities actually green? Not just paint them green? Well, we need to create car-free zones and actual good alternatives to leave your car at home, or again, not even own one. But cities must also use as much of their available area to create as much renewable energy as possible. Just cover as much as you can in solar panels. Aren't solar panels like the cheapest electricity source right now? I gotta Google, I don't know. And create smart energy networks that can like exchange and trade energy in between the city where you have a lot of sunshine and where you don't have a lot of sunshine, or in between cities. But we also need to incentivize localized industries so the emissions from transportations get cut. We need to electrify processes like heating, have good insulation for houses, and affordable, reliable, and green public transit. Then we need actual nature in cities. As I mentioned earlier, build some fucking parks and not have one tree in front of your house and call that a park. And also real biodiversity, not just male trees who shit pollen into your face. Yes, that's a real thing. Sexism with trees. If you achieve that, you have a green city. And if you achieve all the previous points as well, then I don't hate your city. And what could be greater than my validation towards you? Build good cities. Bye. Almost at half an hour. I have to edit this.